Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to take a moment to say thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, including Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better, Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing, Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level, Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life, and Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is a good friend, Annette Scogin. Annette is a certified master athletic administrator. She's a longtime athletic director in the state of Arkansas, and she's also a past president of the NIAAA. She's currently taking a break from being an athletic director, but she's very active in a couple of different enterprises that are aimed at helping others. So we'll give her a chance to share a little bit about that. But Annette, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I love all you're doing for athletic directors and coaches across the nation and even the world.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun, and we're excited to have you on the program. So, as you know, it's a busy time for athletic directors and everyone. So we'll jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and how a love of sports sort of led you into this career of being an athletic administrator.
Okay, I'll be quick. Well, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, which right now is snowed in. I went to Henderson State University. My family had an emergency, so instead of going D1, I stayed close to home, which was great because I went to a wonderful university and was able to play two sports. From there, I went on to Texas and had an athletic career. I was fortunate enough to get into the career right when Title IX, all the schools were mandated to hire a female coordinator, or female AD. So from the get-go, I was able to be in athletic administration. Played college volleyball and basketball, and then traveled nationally on the softball team. So I've been in love with sports all along.
Well, take us through that time where, post college, now you're starting to get involved as a teacher and coach. How did that develop into, that first job as an AD?
Well, like I said, I was fortunate enough right out of college. Every job offer I had, which back then ranged from $8,000 to $20,000. So, but they all had that title with them. Now, I didn't have any clue what I was going to do with that title. And into my second year, I had a car wreck. And at that point in time, they didn't think that I would ever be able to really walk or speak again. So that kind of put me back. But I learned what I love about education was the AD. Everybody took my PE classes, took my teams. They're like, we want you here. We don't want you to have to pay. We'll sub in for you. The whole community came together. And at that point, I was like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to walk or talk again. But what I know is if I can, I'm going to give back to this career and this education because it's all about family.
Well, I had heard just a little that you had an accident many years ago. I didn't know it was that severe. Wow. Talk to our listeners about that very first athletic director job. What do you remember about it like it was yesterday? What might you, maybe do differently now that you know what you know?
Well, I definitely would be a little more open to listen to people instead of just here's our handbook and here's what we're going to do about this and you're not going to be on the team. I mean, everything back then was kind of black and white. You really old school type mentality, and especially in the smaller communities, that's how things were done. And if someone acted up in the classroom, go get the coach or the AD and those kind of things. So looking back now, the collaboration, learning and understanding other people and how change affects them, how thinking outside the box or bringing something new to them, how gracefully you need to do that as opposed to this is what we're going to do. And, we're the leaders and this is how we're going to follow it. So embracing and collaboration as an older AD, I think that's what I would have done better as a younger AD.
No, I think, we all can take that particular lesson and look back and wish we would have used it a little bit more. You've touched a little bit about mentors. And in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and mentoring that next generation. So who are some of your mentors, either teachers or coaches you might have had growing up, or people that you've worked with or worked for? As I always say, I still hear those voices in my head from my mentors. So whose voices do you still hear?
Well, I still hear Jim Dickerson, who is now a retired athletic director, but he was, I was in junior high and the high school team needed some extra players to move up for the state playoffs. And so I was one of the athletes who moved up and actually ended up starting in the state tournament. And so that was a big challenge to knock some people out of a starting position. But he taught me a lot as a coach, how things should be and how you should treat people and how to communicate. And then later on became an athletic director, and he was an athletic director. So I leaned on him a lot. Hartzell Jones and Dr. Rollins from Springdale were excellent. Of course, my college coach, Jane Severe, was an icon with Title IX and starting off. And so to be able to stay connected to her and ask questions about being a female in the profession was excellent. There's so many wonderful people I've worked with and mentors, but those are a few that really, I still can pick up the phone and I still hear some of the things they say, like, don't go over to this building principal and approach him this way, go over to this building and principal and talk to him this way. And so, Hartzell Jones was excellent with that. Dr. Rollins was excellent with that on how to understand different personalities and how to approach them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so important to have that network. And it's always great to hear these stories about the people that helped us get where we're at. It's a great reminder we didn't do it on our own. Talk a little bit to our listeners. We have a lot of younger ADs that listen in. Talk to them about your journey with your state association and, with NIAAA, and how that just didn't happen. Talk about the steps of, again, taking the LTI courses and just leading all the way up to your CMAA.
Well, at first, I was in Arkansas and I was at a private school, and there were no other female athletic directors in the state at that point in time. And so I was a little nervous. I was young, in my early 20s. And of course, I'm just coming off the car wreck. So my speaking skills and all my skills weren't really where they needed to be. They still grow every day. But I just said, you know what, I'm going to walk in this room, this conference, and I'm going to go to the front table, and I'm going to ask those nice gentlemen if I can sit down with them, please, and just go from there. And I want to tell you, Johnny White, Johnny Johnson, Doug Kilgore, they're all like, sure, have a seat. And from there, they just helped me along, and I was able to be the first female president. I was able to teach the first LTI course. Of course, that's because Bill Mayo said, you're going to teach it. I really didn't have an option. That's just Bill Mayo, if you know him. I said, okay, I'll do it. I don't know if anybody will come since I'm a female and these are all the guys, but it was great. And from there, I just didn't ever feel like there was a difference in them and myself. So I went on to be Section 6 at-large rep on the NIAAA board, and was honored and humbled to become the president and do what I could do to serve others, even from a bigger globe within NIAAA.
Again, I think the start of your story, walking in and going up to that front table, you made that decision to get involved, and, just so important to take that first step. Coaches, I think many of us have said this, coaches tend to keep things close to the vest. ADs are just the opposite. They can't wait to share a story and help someone out. So, very cool. One of the things we like to do with our podcast is hopefully share this idea of best practices. And you certainly had great success as an athletic administrator, and you've certainly seen some great programs out there. So what are a couple of things, looking back at the schools that you have been the AD at, that you can look back with equal parts pride and humility and say, boy, we really did a great job. We did it better than anybody else. What are a couple best practices you can share?
I do believe as a person and as an AD, you need to volunteer outside of your profession, and you need to take professional development outside of your profession. And so that was a real focus of mine throughout my career. If I was going to be better for myself to better serve others, I need to learn not just about education, but about the world and how other people did things. And I look back, Race for the Cure, they're like, will you serve on our board? And I'm like, I'd rather just volunteer at, one of the race handing out water or something. And they're like, what? And I'm like, that I got to learn a lot from how you run an event to the other side of how you treat the people that run an event. Professional development, I took ESL courses because in Springdale we had a number of English language learners, second language. And so, I need to be able to relate to them, and I need to be able to teach my coaches how to relate to them and their culture, but I couldn't teach what I didn't know. So I would definitely encourage them to go and get, what can I do to better serve my community, and what can I do to better serve myself to serve others? Some other things in Springdale, we did 3 school service and 3 community service. We raised a lot of money. Of course, Gus was there before and he raised a lot of money. So that was kind of the culture. But the culture was always just kind of sticking out your hand and saying, hey, support us, support us, support us, instead of what can we do for you? And then how can we partner together? So shaking hands and building relationships through our kids, through our coaches, even with our 2 rival schools on the other side of town, the football program's doing something together as one. So things like that you really can build and grow on relationship wise, but also grow as a person to better serve others.
I lost it for a second, but we're back. It's just so important. You hit it on the head, building those relationships, and whether it's asking for support or just promoting your program, getting the kids out there, getting the coaches out there, you just can't beat it. The dividends are immeasurable. Okay? Good stuff.
Yeah. You got to, you have to take responsibility. I see that a lot, that younger ADs or even younger coaches or parents, it's always the coach's fault, or it's always someone, just step up and, if my coach messed up, I'm like, you know what, that's my fault. I didn't prepare them by doing X. And then we might have a conversation. Or, if they want a big game, oh, I'm going to promote you up. I want to lift you up. I want to get you in every media outlet I can. I want to do everything, awards banquet, whatever we can to lift you up and just promote you. Even when coaches went to look for other jobs, superintendents would say, we don't want to lose this coach. And I'm like, I want what's best for that coach. If that coach wants to move up to another program, I want to support them, because we've prepared the people below, and there's people that want to come work for and with us. So I think, giving credit where credit's due, stepping in the back and cheering them on, and also taking responsibility and being the one wearing the bulletproof vest when you need to is very important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. You've been in athletic administration for a few years now, and looking back, obviously there's been some changes. Technology probably at the top of the list, but other than computers and emails and things like that, what are some changes that you've seen in the day-to-day routine of an athletic administrator since you first got involved?
Well, I do believe it's become more of a business job. And in that aspect, that's where we're at times, especially the district office, is losing touch with, putting kids first and thinking about those things. But you've also got to be trained on how to raise money. You've got to be trained on the legal affairs, the things going on with transgender. There's so much that you have to do, that in so many hats that you have to wear that are different now. Back in the day, you kind of set up the gym, you did the floor, you did the money, and you still do those things, but you also have to know all the legal issues. You have to handle the COVID issues. You have to hiring practices and due process, stuff like that. So I've seen the job evolve almost to similar to a superintendent's job. Is you've got to be able to do everything, and then you've got to be able to go down here and remember why you got into this career, which is working those games, going those games, and interacting with your coaches.
Absolutely. It's become much more global than, definitely when you and I were back in school. Talk a little bit about the athletic director's relationship now with parents versus, maybe 15 or 20 years ago. How has that changed?
Well, it definitely, people used to say, if you had a problem with a coach as a kid, you send your kid to talk to the coach. And you saw it evolve through the years. It was, the parents would talk, and now with social media, you almost have to get ahead of things. That 24-hour rule that we used to have, don't talk to the coach, don't talk to anybody till everybody's cooled down after 24 hours. You can't afford for that to be anymore. You've got to take action and be proactive instead of reactive. So, when you're at those games, or your assistants are at those games, or your building administrators, if something's going on, spreading the word as quick as you can so you can get ahead of it and saying, I want to listen to you. I want to hear your side. There's 2-3 sides to every situation. Let's try to come together and collaborate and see what's best for the kid. And the other thing is taking that student athlete into account. A lot of times they're left out of the conversations, and when you get to them, that's not what they wanted or needed at all, whatever the situation was. So, embracing everybody for the new ways that we do things, but leaving that 24-hour rule, 48-hour rule, I just don't think you can afford to do that anymore.
Yeah, definitely. Being proactive, and as you said, being trying to get ahead of it. That's going to bear some good fruit. You mentioned COVID, and I know you're not out of school right now, but one thing we've seen, and for our listeners, we're recording this episode on February 19th, so we're coming up on 1 year of being under COVID. But looking across the country, we've seen a wide variety of responses from schools, from state associations, from county health departments. So from your perspective, what have you seen as maybe some best practices and maybe some things that you might have done differently from a AD game day management perspective?
Well, there are so many different ways out there. I'm actually a volunteer basketball coach, assistant basketball coach. So I've been able to see a lot of things in a lot of different angles on how people are handling COVID. Also, I'm fortunate enough that the network is large, and people call and go, hey, do you know what so-and-so is doing? Or can you have some time on your hand? Do you mind researching this for me? Whatever it may be. And of course, with all the webinars and things there are now, the podcasts, to learn from each other so quickly. But the best practices, the going online ticketing, being able to manage that up front as opposed to exchanging money at the gate, besides the safety of that, but just letting people know, okay, we have 50 tickets, and those 50 tickets go to the parents first, or, X amount of tickets per family, and then boom, boom, boom. But when you don't communicate those things, then people get lost and things can happen as far as people get really upset. I've been in a number of games where they clear the gym in between the girls and the boys game, and parents who have a boy and a girl playing don't quite understand that. But if someone would have communicated and said, hey, we'll honor your ticket for both games, but what we're going to need you to do is step outside. So I do believe it all goes back to communication. That's the best practice. And with social media, you can do that. Testing and so much I've seen the ends where people are like, well, they may have been exposed or they may not have. The black and white, and getting people back down to, we have to be clear on this. I mean, we've got to be honest. Playing the game or practicing or whatever it may be is not above taking care of everybody's health and wellness. So to me, that's the thing I see that we've got to tighten up on, is what do we do to ensure everybody's being honest about what they're doing?
No, and again, you hit it on the head again with communication. School makes the decision to go to online ticketing, but they don't communicate the process of how you get those online tickets. And parents or students or some groups frustrated. So yeah, you got to tell them what's going on. I just shared the other day, I had a boss many years ago. He loved the expression, "We need to over communicate," talking about parents, and he was right. You need to communicate those things. Good stuff. Annette, when we started these podcasts back in June, the events, the tragic events of Minneapolis and even later in Atlanta were still, very much in the news. And I've been asking the athletic directors, what are some things that we can do better as administrators? What can we do better in this area of, social awareness, social justice? What can you share with us?
Well, it goes back to communication. It goes back to accountability and taking responsibility. You don't know what you don't know, and you hadn't walked in everybody's shoes. So collaboration, bringing people together. And there's so much out there. I mean, even with our kids on, as assistant basketball coach, I'm constantly sending out, hey, there's a webinar on this, or there's a webinar on this. And, maybe y'all should form your own group to come together and approach the school administration about what you can do. But, empowering and lifting them up and learning yourself on what do I need to do to help? I mean, we're all in this together and we want the best for everybody. It's students first, it's people's first. And not losing focus of that. We're not in one corner and other corner. We're all together. And how do we continue to respect each other, even though we may have different opinions on some things, learning to listen and listen for change and listen for understanding and listen for respect. But it all goes back to lifting them up and admitting, I haven't walked in your shoes. So tell me what it's like to walk in your shoes, and then tell me how I can avoid someone else walking in those shoes if those shoes didn't fit right for you. And if they did fit right for you, how can we get more people's shoes like you've had on and what you've walked in? So it's collaboration and working together.
Again, I really appreciate you sharing that. And sports is just such a natural environment for that to occur. And, ADs and coaches, have to make sure that, that communication can occur and that there's a culture where, people are comfortable sharing. So thanks again.
Yeah. It's definitely the platform, athletics, education is a great platform. It's for learning, student athletes. And so being able to use that platform to be leaders and to be part of the social change and to be part of the acceptance and to be part of those that go, I respect that you don't believe or think like I do, or you don't respect these things, and lift above. I used to say, we had a bad game recently. I said, we were playing another team. And I said, what would Michelle Obama say right now? And some of the kids are like, wow, what would she say? And others are like, Michelle Obama, they thought I knew her. Well, I read her stuff a lot, but, how do you rise above? And when they go low, how do you go high? And then how do we work together to go together?
Very cool. Great stuff. As I mentioned, you're currently involved in a couple of endeavors that are aimed at helping others. What can you share with our listeners about those activities?
Well, I'm in Alabama now, taking care of elderly family members, which is hard to do with an athletic director career. You really have to be flexible to take people to, cancer treatments or doctor's appointments or whatever. So, I looked into what are my passions, and my passion and what I feel like I'm on this earth for is to help others. And the two areas I'm passionate about is our finances. I was always fighting for more money in athletics and more money for my coaches. And the other is health and wellness. I need an athletic trainer. I need, strength and conditioning and things like that. I need proper care of my facilities so that they're clean. So I just went in and said, how can I, supplement my income enough to go through this venture where I am for now till I become an AD again and still stay with my passion. And so my pure business is all about health and wellness. We, have supplements that help people lose weight to, pro and Olympic athletes. And then the business is all about helping people save money on their bills so they have more money to spend with club sports or to pay the fees at their school to play sports or whatever it may be. Or just as a teacher, we don't make a lot of money. So they both are helping people. And, do I make a lot of money? No, but I make enough to be able to be here and do what I need to do for family and still stay true to my passion.
No, I really appreciate you, including me on, the information posts that you do on Facebook and other platforms. If one of our listeners, and again, listeners, I hope you do, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and find out more about these enterprises, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
They can obviously email me, Annette Scogin at Gmail, or my phone number is 479-879-1656. We do both ventures I do for fundraising for schools and churches and nonprofits, which keeps me connected to, giving back and being a servant leader in that way. So, whatever I can do to help in any way. I mean, whether it's about my business or you just need me to research something for you as an AD or as a person or as professional development, whatever it may be, I'm here to help anybody any way I can. And I'm fortunate right now to have enough flexible time to do some things for other people.
Okay. Well, again, appreciate you sharing, and listeners, encourage you to reach out. Annette Scogin at Gmail, and you can play this back and get the phone number. I'm not going to make her give it out again. Okay. Annette, this has been great talking with you and catching up, but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, we've already established that you are a veteran AD, a Hall of Fame AD, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Annette Scogin's athletic director toolbox?
Oh gosh, 3 things. That's quick. Know the legal ramifications of everything and everybody around you and the decisions you make. Know the ramifications and the positive and negative of change and how it affects people, positively and negatively. If you don't change, nothing is going to change, but change scares a lot of people. So how do you embrace that? And relationships, I believe the core of everything and everybody on earth is about relationships. And if you can build positive relationships, everything will work out and everything will get better, and grow itself. But if you don't plant the seed and you don't keep watering those relationships, they don't keep blossoming. So build relationships and commit to that every day. I'm gonna say one more. I used to have a stack of notes on my desk, and my secretaries would say, "Hey, you didn't send out 3 notes today." Every day I sent out 3 notes, whether it's to the janitor or whether it's to the business that gave us $1,000 or whether it's to one of our former players or coaches that moved on somewhere. Nurture those relationships, and the handwritten note is still as important today as it was years ago.
I don't know if I do 3 a day, but I try to get out at least 1 handwritten note because you're absolutely right. They are just so powerful. And, you're just trying to say thank you to somebody. And it's amazing how often they'll get back to you and say, gosh, thank you for saying thank you. Really pays dividends. Thank you so much. Annette Scogin, Hall of Famer, pro athlete, and just a really great friend. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you for all you do. And like I said, if I can help you or anybody else, just let me know.
To our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are also being uploaded on the FIAAA Educational Athletic Director YouTube channel. And as always, thanks for listening. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD.